Before I start this story, I need to say one thing. This is not a fictional tale. What you're about to hear is based on a real case that happened in London. Multiple people witnessed it. Police were involved, and what took place inside that house was officially documented. I'm not telling this story to scare you. I'm telling it because some places don't forget the people who die inside them. So if you're listening alone, late at night, you might want to keep the lights on. This is what happened. In 1977, in a quiet part of North London, there was a small council house that looked exactly like every other house on the street. Same brick walls, same narrow hallway, same thin windows that rattled when buses passed by. Nothing about the house stood out, and that's why what happened inside it was so disturbing. A single mother lived there with her children. Money was tight, life was routine, and nights were usually silent, until one night when the knocking started. It wasn't loud. It sounded like someone gently tapping on the bedroom wall. At first, she thought it was pipes. Old houses make noise. She ignored it. But the knocking didn't stop. It moved. One night it came from the wall. The next night from the floor. Then from the ceiling. By the fourth night, furniture began to slide across the room. No hands, no footsteps, just movement. The mother called the police. When the officers arrived, they expected a prank call or a family argument. Instead, they stood in the living room and watched a heavy wooden chair scrape across the floor, slowly, deliberately, on its own. One officer later said it was the most unsettling thing he had ever witnessed. That should have been the end of it. It wasn't. Soon, the youngest child began acting differently. She would sit silently for hours, staring at corners of the room where nothing was visible. When spoken to, she wouldn't respond, until one night she opened her mouth and spoke in a voice that did not belong to her. It was deep, rough, old. The voice claimed it had once lived in that house. It said it had died there, and it said it was still there. Neighbors started hearing noises through the walls, banging, shouting, furniture crashing, sometimes in the middle of the night, sometimes during the day. Journalists arrived. Paranormal investigators followed. This was no longer a private family issue. It was public. Witnesses reported toys flying across rooms, beds shaking violently, the child being lifted off the floor for several seconds before being dropped. And every time investigators tried to communicate with whatever was there, the voice returned. Angry, defensive, territorial. It didn't want help. It wanted the house. One investigator asked why it stayed. The voice answered with one sentence. "I lived here, I died here, and no one told me to leave." Over time, the activity grew darker. The temperature inside the house would suddenly drop. Lights flickered even when power was cut. The smell of decay would appear and vanish within seconds. The children stopped sleeping. The mother stopped trusting silence, because silence meant something was listening. Late one night, when the house was empty except for the mother and the youngest child, the voice spoke again, without warning. It didn't come from the child's mouth this time. It came from inside the walls. It said her name, slowly, clearly. That was the moment she realized this wasn't just a haunting. It was possession of space. The entity didn't want bodies. It wanted ownership. Investigators eventually traced the voice's identity to a man who had once lived in the house years earlier. He had died suddenly, angry and alone. Whether that explanation was true or not didn't matter. What mattered was this. Too many people saw too much to dismiss it.
Police reports, audio recordings, photographs, independent witnesses. This wasn't one person's imagination. Eventually, the activity slowed, not because the entity was gone, but because it no longer needed to prove itself. The family moved out, new people moved in, and the house returned to normal, at least on the outside. Years later, a contractor renovating the property reported hearing knocking inside the walls, 3 slow taps, always at night. He quit after 1 week. To this day, locals avoid talking about the house, not because they don't believe the story, but because they do. Because if something claims a place strongly enough, it doesn't need to follow you. It waits, right where it died.